Don't you know who I am? I'm the Juggernaut, bitch!
Hi everyone, and welcome to Exploring the Build. If you've just found this place, then welcome. And if you're returning, I'm glad to have you back. I'm Alex, and this is my channel where we explore and theory craft different character builds for Dungeons & Dragons. Today, we are continuing with our Marvel character builds, and this is the last one of the 3 in a row start of our Marvel build series. There will be more peppered in with our other requested builds going forward, but this is the last one that starts the kickoff of the series. Now, as a refresher, or if you're brand new, this series is specifically dedicated to theory crafting Marvel builds that are meant to come online early, only really going over the build up to level 10. Anything past that will be handled in the summary in a brief overview. The other thing is that we're not just focusing on recreating the character by themselves, we're also going to try to accomplish a Marvel team up within the build's first 10 levels. That means trying to find some way to get an ally, whether that's a battle buddy, a summon spell, or some other unique feature, in order to be able to call in an ally that would typically fight side by side with the character we're trying to make. That way, regardless of whether we're in a team already, or if we're the only Marvel build at the table, we can still call in some extra support and have that classic superhero team up. Today's request comes from Eric Peterson, who wanted to see a Marvel's Rhino or Juggernaut build that came online as quickly as possible. The key elements being big, strong, tough, and able to run people over. Now, of course, the title of this video, as well as thumbnail, make it seem like this build is Juggernaut-centric. You could also translate this build to a different Marvel character, like Rhino. And here's the thing. The build is just so versatile that no matter how we come about it from the theme perspective, a lot of elements will overlap, and for those that don't, I will give a bit of an explanation as to why we're picking the choice based on the certain character, or if the choice would change, depending on what exact character you were trying to pull off. With all that said, let's break into this Marvel character build. Starting off the character build in character creation with our origin, most of these big, strong, brick wall-breaking characters are probably going to be human. Rhino's a human, Juggernaut's a human, but with the X gene since he is a mutant, and the Thing was a human before all that. So technically, we should be picking human. However, because we are using the 2024 rule set, I'm actually going to go with Goliath. I want Goliath not because we're supposed to be like descended from giants thematically, but we are supposed to be big boys. And at level 5, Goliaths gain large form, allowing them to grow to size large once per long rest. And that is definitely something we want on the build, just to capture the sheer size of these characters. The other thing we get as being a Goliath is our giant ancestry. And there are 2 that are pretty perfect in my mind for what we want to accomplish with this build, though technically any of them could probably work. For an offensive choice, we want to pick Hill Giant and have Hills Tumble as our giant ancestry feature. But for a more defensive option, the classic Stone Giant with Stone's Endurance is also a really good way to go. We're going to be focusing on either trampling through opponents with a lot of effects that make us feel physically powerful, whether that's push or toppling enemies over. So Hill's Tumble is pretty perfect since that lets us automatically knock an enemy prone a number of times per day equal to our proficiency bonus. Stone's Endurance, on the other hand, helps with the durability that this character is supposed to have, and we're going to be grabbing lots of durability anyways, so we don't really need it unless you want to feel like an absolute tank. Going on to our background now, we're going to pick any old one from a previous source book or a custom background from the Dungeon Master's Guide in order to be able to pick the ability score boosts as well as origin feat of our choice. With that in mind, the origin feat that we do want from our background is going to be Tavern Brawler. Tough is a good alternative, but I think we want Tavern Brawler for the offensive options just a little bit more right now. Finally, for our stats, we're going to put a +2 into Strength and a +1 into Constitution in order to get the following array of ability scores. 17 Strength, 10 Dexterity, 16 Constitution, 8 Intelligence, 14 Wisdom, and 8 Charisma. The wisdom might feel a little higher than is necessary for these big brute characters, so you could swap that or spend some points on dexterity instead if you wanted to, but I like it as it gives us a little bit more of a perceptive lean, and it is nice to know that at least one of our mental stats isn't completely terrible. With that said, let's jump into the level breakdown. Starting off the level breakdown at level 1, I know what most of you are probably thinking. We're going to go Barbarian. That way we can get Rage in order to capture both the durability through resistance as well as the extra damage and sheer force that they have thanks to rage damage. And while that is a very good option, and Juggernaut would certainly make a great Zealot Barbarian given that he is the champion of Sidorak, or Rhino would make an excellent Battle Rager with their spiked armor since he has an actual spike on his suit. We're not doing any of that, and instead we're going to pick Fighter. Level 1, we're starting as Fighter 1, and with that we're going to get Second Wind as well as the Unarmed fighting style. Our unarmed strikes used a D4 from Tavern Brawler, but now they can go all the way up to a D8 if we don't have any other weapons or a shield in hand, which is probably what we're going to want to do. That way we can grapple 2 targets at once, potentially. Though if you would prefer to have a little bit more defense, then taking the D6 for your unarmed strikes because you have a shield in hand is also okay, and we can just flavor that other shield away as extra padding. Going up to level 2, we're going to be a Fighter 2, and here we get Action Surge. That's it, nice and straightforward. At level 3, we get our Fighter subclass, and here we are, of course, going to go Rune Knight. Rune Knight is kind of the big reason I wanted to go Fighter. Really, Rune Knight is what allows us to actually feel even more like a physically imposing character. See, we don't actually have large form yet, but at level 3 with Rune Knight, we do get Giant's Might. Both of those features let us increase our size to size large. However, the bonuses are technically different depending on which feature you're using to increase your size. With Giant's Might, we can actually start to feel like a large character much quicker. Besides Giant's Might, we also gain the Rune Carver feature. We can pick 2 runes to inscribe onto clothing, armor, or weapons. We get 2 runes here that each give us a passive and an active effect, and for those, I would strongly suggest the Frost Rune and either the Stone Rune or the Fire Rune. The Fire Rune needing a bit of reflavoring from manacles that appear when we hit the enemy with an attack, to rather us just pummeling the enemy into the ground, so the restrained condition comes from the fact that they are in the ground. At level 4, we are Fighter 4, and here we gain our first ability score improvement / feat. We're just going to go ahead and grab the Charger feat, as we know it is something we desperately want on this character, specifically for thematic purposes. We want to be able to run through walls and over people, so having Charger makes us feel like we can do just that. With Charger, we can increase our strength by 1 to round it off at 18. Whenever we take the dash action, our speed increases by 10 feet, which is really nice on a melee heavy character to have that little bit of extra mobility. And we have the passive charge attack. If we move 10 feet in a straight line towards an enemy and then hit that enemy with a melee attack that is part of the attack action, we can choose to add an extra effect onto that attack. We can either gain a bonus D8 to that attack's damage, or we can push the target 10 feet away from us if they are no more than 1 size larger than us. At level 5, we are Fighter 5, and we gain extra attack. Now we can do 2 unarmed strikes on our turn, allowing us to punch twice, headbutt twice, kick twice, or obviously the other cool option, grapple twice. Being able to grapple 2 enemies could be a very interesting playstyle to lean into if you wanted to not just run through walls, but pick someone up and then run through a wall with them. At level 6, we are Fighter 6, we get our next feat, and for this one, we're taking Heavy Armor Master to increase our durability. Heavy Armor Master lets us do that by allowing us to reduce all piercing, bludgeoning, or slashing damage by an amount equal to our proficiency bonus. Our proficiency bonus is now 3, so anytime we get hit by one of those 3 damage types, we're just flat out reducing the damage by that much. We can also increase our constitution or strength by +1. I'll let you pick your favorite, whether you want to try and eventually cap off strength as quick as possible, or start to increase your constitution for more durability. At level 7, we are Fighter 7, and here we gain 2 key abilities. One is Runic Shield. Whenever a creature within 60 feet of us is hit with an attack roll, we can force that attacker to reroll the d20 and use the new roll. A nice little protective feature that does use our reaction. The other thing we get is the Hill Rune. The Hill Rune's activatable ability is the exact reason why I was okay skipping over Barbarian to grab Heavy Armor from Fighter and Heavy Armor Master, because when we activate the Hill Rune, for 1 minute we can gain resistance to piercing, bludgeoning, and slashing damage. That means that we not only have resistance to those 3 damage types, but from Heavy Armor Master we also have damage reduction. Now, I'm not 100% sure on which one triggers first. I believe resistance halves the incoming damage first, and then we reduce it with Heavy Armor Master, meaning that if we take 10 damage, we reduce it to 5, then block 3 of it, and only take 2. However, if I'm wrong and it is the other way around, that's no skin off our nose. But either way, pairing these 2 features together is gonna give us a lot of passive resistance to the primary damage of weapons. And that really makes us feel like an absolute brick of a character. Going up to level 8, it's time to focus on getting our signature ally. And I'm gonna try and pick something that allows us to flavor it as Juggernaut's signature ally, or Rhino's, or even the Things. Remember how I said having 14 wisdom might be a little inaccurate for our character? Well, that's true, but we also need it for the multi-class we're doing. We're gonna jump over to Druid. In 2024, Druids no longer have the metal armor restriction, which is pretty great since we want to pick that class up for the eventual features they can give us to allow us to have a summoned ally. At Druid 1, we gain spellcasting, so pick any spells that you feel are appropriate for this character. I specifically like the 2024 version of the cantrip Resistance, as well as Absorb Elements from the 2014 rule set. Having those 2 spells together can really help increase our durability against elemental damage. At level 9, we go up to Druid 2, we gain our Wild Shape feature, and we are going to ignore it. None of these characters become an animal, so we're not going to be using this feature for that purpose. At level 10, we have made it to Druid 3, we get our Druid subclass, and we can finally pick a subclass to give us that Marvel team up. Before I talk about that though, we also gain 2nd level spells, so again pick any spells that you feel would add to the theme of this character. Probably ones that boost our durability, or that could feel like us throwing a boulder or doing some sort of ranged effect that these big strong characters would pull off in the comics from time to time. Now for that subclass and that Marvel team up, there are 2 options that I think would be best to go with. Option number 1, maybe a little less enticing, is Shepherd Druid. The reason I say it's a little less enticing is because the Shepherd Druid's Spirit Totem ability is not in any way linked to its Wild Shape feature, meaning that we are straight up limited to 2 uses per day for our Spirit Totem. The Spirit Totem would, however, be pretty neat since it gives us 3 options of a spiritual entity to summon into battle with us, and that spiritual entity is not an actual statted ally, it just provides a strict bonus within a given aura. The Bear Spirit for durability, Hawk Spirit for more damage and a bit of perception, and then the Unicorn Spirit for healing. And we could flavor any one of these spirits as an ally coming to assist us in the middle of combat. Whether that's one of the Sinister Six for Rhino, changing the Hawk Spirit to Vulture showing up, or one of the Brotherhood of Mutants for Juggernaut, maybe such as Blob instead of the Bear Spirit, coming out of the woodwork to give us some extra toughness and durability. This feature is nice, versatile, and can easily be reflavored, so it's a pretty good option. Option number 2 though, and the one that I like just a little bit more, is Wildfire Druid. With Wildfire Druid, we gain an actual Wildfire Spirit that uses our Wild Shape feature, so now there's an actual reason to have it. Plus, the Wildfire Druid gives us some extra damage as a bonus action, admittedly not the strongest damage since our wisdom is fairly weak, but when it comes to damage, every bit counts. And if we go further into Druid, we'll actually get some bonus healing, which could be pretty nice to have our ally providing, given that we want to be a very tough and durable brick of a character. And of course, the main thing we care about is the fact that we can easily reflavor this as a fiery team up. Whether it's Pyro from the Brotherhood of Mutants to help out Juggernaut, Johnny Storm to help out the Fantastic Four, or a fiery character that goes up against Spider-Man to help out Rhino, we have a very easy ally to pick when it comes to the Wildfire Spirit. And besides that, that's the Juggernaut build. Going past level 10, well, there's a few things we really would want to consider. For the most part, we probably don't want to invest too much more in Druid, maybe save one more level to grab that ability score improvement, especially if you want to try and hit that double epic boon split at 16 and 4, though that takes quite a long time. But if you do like the idea of empowering that Wildfire Spirit and scaling it even further to make Johnny Storm or Pyro more capable in combat, going up to Fighter 12 and Druid 8 works just as well. As far as extra feats go, we definitely would want to consider Grappler for the ability to pick enemies up and carry them with us as we're on the move, charging through those walls, or Mage Slayer for some extra durability and to be able to resist those darned psionic characters like Juggernaut's brother, Professor X. Of course, we'll get at least one, maybe even 2 epic boons if you do eventually get to level 19 and 20. And with those, I'd say pick your favorites. Though really, the top 2 would probably be Boon of Recovery or Fortitude, depending on how you want to get that extra durability and health, and then Boon of Irresistible Offense to ignore resistance to bludgeoning damage. But with all that said, thank you so much for coming on the journey with me, and I hope to see you in the next one.